team and Professor Rama for producing such a wonderful report. And it's also a very important report in that it shows the resiliency and growth of the African economies despite all of the shocks of recent years. If one had been asked in 2019, suppose that there would be a global pandemic, suppose after that there would be a major war, sanctions regime, and disruption of the world energy markets and food markets. Suppose that interest rates were going to rise significantly in the United States and in other key currencies. What would you expect for Africa? I think many people would have said potentially disaster. But in fact, what this report emphasizes is that African economies are growing. They're growing consistently. I agree completely with what Professor Arama said in closing just now, that Africa is the place to invest. I'm actually going to double down on that in the following sense. Africa is growing at 4% per year right now. I do strongly believe, and it's not only on wish and hope, but actually on analytics, that Africa can, and I think will, rise to growth of 7% or more per year consistently in the coming decades. And that what we're going to see in the next decades, building on the resiliency that we see in this report, a real acceleration of Africa's sustainable development, so that Africa will be the fast-growing part of the world economy. In a way, it needs to be. It remains the poorer part of the world economy, but that, on the positive side, means more headroom for rapid growth. China, as we all know, grew at least 7 to 10% per year consistently for 40 years between 1980 and 2020. I strongly believe, again, I would argue, if I had time to elaborate on solid analytical grounds, that between 2023 and 2063, Africa is going to achieve 7 to 10% growth, and that the Africa we have known in the past as being poor and unstable will be a thing of the past, because this is the time of opportunity for a breakthrough that is on its way right now. I think the breakthrough has three components, if I may say so. First is integration of the African economy. Africa is 54 countries, but together as a single integrated economy, it's at the same size as China and India, almost identical, 1.4 billion across the three big parts of the world economy. If the African Union and if the member states continue on this path of rapid integration, and that's integration in policy, it's integration in transboundary infrastructure, it's integration in a single market, this will substantially increase Africa's resilience and rate of growth. Second is what we've heard about strategic industrial policy. I think it is absolutely grounded, by the way, on what will be a massive upgrading of skills in the years ahead, because we're going to see a flowering of higher education and advanced skills across Africa. It's already happening, but it will be massive, and it will underpin this strategic transformation of industry. And the final part is finance. Africa does not have too much debt, by the way. The problem is the debt is very short term, the international capital markets too unstable, not enough investors understand Africa's forward-looking growth prospects. But we're going to have a breakthrough in long-term sustainable development finance. It's going to be led by the African Development Bank, by the way, as it is being led. But I personally believe that the AFDB should be lending many times more than it's lending now, using its good name, its strong policies, its strong balance sheet, and its unique role to increase substantially, especially the investments in human capital and in physical infrastructure, which will underpin a massive increase of business capital investment as well. So just in a nutshell, this report shows that Africa is growing, is resilient, and has the prospects for an acceleration of growth. And the key underpinnings of that acceleration will be integration in Africa, will be strategic policies, not only in industry, but in skill development as well, I would emphasize, and also in finance. So I think this report will be part of a series of reports showing an acceleration of growth in the years ahead. And I want to end by, again, agreeing completely with Professor Arama that investors look forward. This is going to be the place of rapid growth in the world economy, and there's a lot of interesting places for building new long-term business development and business growth, and that is what Africa is going to be known for in the years ahead. Thank you for including me in today's launch.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. We're not going to let you end as yet. I love what you said. You said the Africa we know as poor and unstable will become a thing of the past. Kind of reminds me about your 2005 book, The End of Poverty, where you wrote that Africa's governance is poor because Africa is poor. Almost 18 years later, have things changed, or does more need to be done, particularly in light of the three issues that you mentioned: enhanced integration, massive upskilling, and increased finance? What's your take? Where are we today?
Things have definitely improved, which is why we've seen that despite all of the global shocks thrown at Africa, Africa continues to move forward. Now, I think that the most exciting part for me has been the African integration, that the AU went from an important meeting place of governments to an actual single market in more and more areas. And when we build in infrastructure in the years ahead for tapping Africa's vast zero carbon energy also, because Africa's got the sunshine, it's got the geothermal, it's got the hydropower that still is to be tapped. And we do that at a continental scale. This will be a further breakthrough. So there are lots of good things happening, but there's even more to come. There are improvements. I think with 54 countries, you always have a mix of governance, but I would say if the 54 countries understand, especially the leaders understand, put the faith and put the future into this strong African integration, this is going to be the key to success.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs. I'm going to come to Professor Jeffrey Sachs again for your closing comments and thoughts in New York. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much. Let me just underscore a couple of the very important points that President Adesina made. First, the importance of regional projects interconnecting the African regions, especially with transport, digital, and energy. That's a unique role for the African Development Bank. There are some very important projects to undertake. They are financeable. They will have a huge economic as well as social return, but they're transboundary. And I think that this is extremely important. Second, the voice of Africa in the international institutions. One basic idea that I am promoting as strongly is that Africa becomes the 21st member of what is now the G20. The European Union has a seat. The African Union should have a seat. It's simple, in my view. The European Union is 450 million people. The African Union is 1.4 billion people. It's time for the G20 to become the G21 with the African Union. That would open up a lot of opportunities to make breakthroughs on the financing side. Third quick point, yes, leverage the SDRs through the African Development Bank. As the president said, you get a 4-to-1 leveraging. It's a no-brainer. This is really important for us to push this year. Finally, to clarify on the debt, the gross debt to GDP is 60 to 70%. The net debt, lower. But the real problem is many African countries are paying 10% interest rates, 12% interest rates, even higher in some cases. That's untenable. And the maturities are very short. And what the African Development Bank makes possible is long-term, stable, low-interest financing using the AAA rating. And that's why bolstering the flows through the African Development Bank is such a wise and smart move that would tremendously accelerate Africa's development. So again, I agree on all of those points and I believe that we're at the cusp of a major sustained acceleration of investment-led growth in Africa.